Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of architects think about their work by way of storytelling. And I think a lot of probably filmmakers think about their films through the lens of architecture. You think about The Brutalist, for instance, the way that that movie is spoken about the influence of architecture, not just in terms of the cinematography, but also architecture as a way of being able to allow a story to unfold. So you can think about a house as something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end in a straightforward way of thinking about like the entrance, the kitchen, the bedroom. You know, there's a place where your day begins, there's a place where your day ends. And as you move through the house, you would want it to be as compelling as watching a movie. You wouldn't want it to be boring. You wouldn't want to see everything all at once. You would want things to unfold and surprise you and reveal themselves. So I think there's a way to think about spaces within a building in the same way that you would think about acts within a script. And you would be able to think about teasing certain motifs that appear later somewhere else. And yeah, architecture and film are not unrelated to me at all. And I think storytelling is an important thing for both of them. Um, and in architecture, yeah, thinking about the relationship between spaces and the way that you would think about the relationship between acts in a movie, I think is kind of the mindset that I have.
Did you create that course at USC or was that a course that you walked into?
So I'm not sure which course it is exactly that you're referring to, but I there's a number of courses that I coordinated, which is that like I wrote the syllabus and the prompt for them. And
Wow.
in a lot of them, I mean, the references are often outside of architecture. So one, we looked at like video games specifically, like Zelda. We looked at a lot of like Zelda games to figure out like how the architecture of the dungeon maps in Zelda were designed and seeing what lessons we could pull out of Zelda dungeon maps as a way of producing our own interpretation of buildings. Um, but it's also a fun way to get students engaged. I mean, I think like anything, architecture, like anything, runs the risk when it's being taught in an academic environment of being really boring. And so you need to put a carrot at the end of the stick to get people who are 18, 19 years old excited about it. Otherwise, you're just talking about walls and ceilings and floors, and that gets pretty dry pretty quickly.
I sense that you have, that you're still curious and still searching, and you're still open to different possibilities. Do you feel that that sort of perspective you have, did you bring that to the classroom? And are you teaching now?
I'm not teaching now. And I think if anybody is teaching, they have to be curious and open and wanting to continue to develop. I mean, it is a real trap if you're going in to teach and you feel like you have it all figured out, you know exactly what you're doing. At that point, like there's no room for a student to have any original ideas because you're just going to squash them immediately. And so I think the only responsible way to teach is to be open minded and to be willing to develop yourself. You're helping the students develop, but at the same time, you have to be willing to, you know, let them take you for the ride. It is one of the best things I've ever done teaching in that capacity. But I'm not anymore at this point. I think other work has just sort of demanded my time in a way that if you're going to teach, you got to be able to put your all into it. And at a certain point, I realized that I just wasn't going to be able to commit the amount of time to it that would be, I don't know, respectful of the students.
I like that you were thinking about video game design with architecture. And it's just such a brilliant way to approach work. And I think what I'm noticing that's missing, and I have three sons in school, two in college and one in high school. I do notice what you're describing. I do see a lack of curiosity and a lack of embrace and the a lack of embracing the new and embracing technology and even trying to challenge yourself to think differently about how to approach a problem that maybe isn't exactly the way you learned in school or exactly the way they taught you how you're supposed to teach. Like, I feel like in this environment that we're in right now with artificial intelligence and the rapid sort of, production and release of these tools, if you don't have a teacher that has curiosity, if you don't have an instructor or a guide that is unafraid to sort of challenge their own perceptions, as you say, I don't think they're going to serve the student. And they're definitely not going to serve the institution that they're at. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are kind of hiding out like that. There's a lot of teachers that are hiding out. Either they're hiding out or they're white knuckle flying and they're just trying to get through and get done and get out. And I don't want that to hijack the conversation, but I feel like a voice like yours is missing, to help other teachers see that there are other ways to do this, because I just loved what I read. So I want to, you talked earlier about like when you were a really little boy in your parents' company, like you were building models. Did I read that you actually worked on a film called Mucho, Mucho Amor? And you also did something in a film called Science Fair. And you did many set designs in these films, right? Like, when did all this happen and how did you get there?
So Mucho Mucho Amor and Science Fair, the graphic work I did for those was limited and light. I would say those two movies were my entry point into the world of graphics. And that is by way of my brilliant, beautiful, creative wife, Christina Costantini, who directed both of those movies. So Science Fair was her first feature film. And for that, there's a sequence where they needed an animated Kanye West head to bounce along with lyrics. And
Wait,
because
what?
I live, you got to watch it to see. Because I live
I'm going
with
to.
Christina, she said, I need an illustration of Kanye West's head. Can you do that? And I said, sure. So I did that. And that was my first taste of seeing my work on a big screen. And I went, oh boy, I got to do more of this. And then for Mucho Mucho More, I did the title treatment for that. And I would say that sort of set in place, the possibility for me and Christina to work together on things, which I think was an inevitability. Both of my parents worked together. Both of Christina's parents worked together. They have a furniture company that they own and operate in Milwaukee called La Lune. And so for both of us, the model of partnership has always been a working one, the one that we've been exposed to. So working together is maybe an inevitability. And the first project that we really took on together in equal parts was a short we did called The Originals, which was an animated documentary about our old neighborhood and our old landlord in Brooklyn. And that was actual interviews that we conducted with our landlord and his friends that we then animated with full sets that we built and little paper cutouts. And that was maybe the first real demonstration, I think, of like my interest and ability to get into animation. And that sort of set this path forward for having a real calling card for other people to go like, oh, this is a name and this is a guy who can actually do stuff. And that short went on to premiere at Tribeca and did like a whole sort of circuit of film festivals where it got enough attention that